Gandhi, Pietermaritzburg Railway Station, South Africa, winter, 1893. In the station waiting room, which is dark and bitterly cold, a well-dressed young Indian man is sitting. In his pocket, there is a first-class ticket from Durban to Pretoria, but he has only done part of the journey. A few hours earlier, the guard had asked police to take him off the train. A white passenger wanted to ride in the first-class compartment, but not while an Indian man was there. To the railway company and the police, this was quite normal. But not to Mohandas Gandhi. As the night goes on, he wonders what to do. Should he keep quiet? Should he go back to India? Or should he fight against this injustice? By morning, Gandhi has decided to fight, and he has taken a first step on the path that will one day make him a leader loved and followed by millions, even years after his death. From India to England, 1869 to 1892. When Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi died in 1948, he was one of the most famous men in the world. Leaders from many countries spoke about him, and people all over the world felt sad because he had died. Today, people everywhere still recognize his face. His words are still read, and many books have been written about his life. Today, when world leaders visit India, they take flowers to the Raj Ghat in Delhi, where Gandhi's body lay after his death more than 60 years ago. Gandhi believed that people could change the world without using violence. For many years, he worked with others to free India from the British, and in the end, he was successful. All his life, he worked to help poor people. He lived a simple but extraordinary life, and he became the leader of many. The British had first come to India in the 17th century, but the British Empire only began to control the whole of India in the 19th century. India was a very large country with many provinces, cities, languages, and customs, and Indian kings worked with the British to govern the country. Gandhi was born on the 2nd of October 1869 in Porbandar, a very old town in the province of Gujarat. About 15,000 people lived in this small town on India's western coast. A wall of white stone had been built along the beach because the sea was often rough. There were many fishing boats and beautiful seabirds to watch. Gandhi's father, Karamchand, lived with his family in a large, very old house made of white stone. Mohandas was the youngest child. He had an older sister and 2 older brothers. They all spoke Gujarati, the language of that part of India, and like most people there, they belonged to the Hindu faith. When Mohandas was 7 years old, his father was given a job in Rajkot, where the British government had its central offices for the province of Gujarat. And so the family moved to Rajkot, about 190 kilometers east, away from the sea. It was another old city with narrow streets, and Mohandas started to go to school there. Mohandas was a very shy boy, afraid of ghosts and of the dark. His mother, Putlibai, taught him to pray to help him with these fears. In those days, different groups in India lived separately and were not allowed to be friends with each other. One group had a very difficult life. They were known at that time as untouchables. They were given the dirtiest jobs to do and were not allowed to use the same buildings as other people. Mohandas argued about this with his mother. He did not understand why some people had to live separately. He went to school with Muslims and Hindus, boys with different faiths, and from childhood, he dreamed that all people could be friends. Mohandas and his brothers and sister were not allowed to eat meat, to drink wine, or to smoke because of their Hindu faith. But secretly, Mohandas and his brother Karsandas began to smoke cigarettes, and later he copied a school friend and began to eat meat. But because of his love for his mother, he soon stopped both eating meat and smoking cigarettes. In 1882, when Mohandas was 13 years old, he was married to Kastur Kapadia, who was also 13 years old. In those days, marriage of children was the custom in India. His brother Karsandas, who was 2 years older, was also married at the same time. Mohandas accepted this arrangement. He felt happy because of the music, the new clothes, and the rich food at the wedding. But much later, he became an enemy of child marriages and worked hard to stop them. During the first years of their marriage, Kastur usually lived with her parents. Mohandas soon began to love his wife, but it was a stormy marriage at first. Kastur was a confident girl, and Mohandas felt jealous of her because he was still very shy. He tried to control her, and then he felt ashamed of himself. Gandhi's father, Karamchand, became very ill soon after the wedding, and Mohandas helped to look after him. For 3 years, he cared for his father every day after school. One night in 1885, Mohandas left his father's room to go and be with Kastur, and a few minutes later his father died. Gandhi always felt ashamed that he was not with his father when he died. After Karamchand Gandhi's death, the family had less money. Laxmidas, the oldest brother, was now the head of the family. Mohandas finished school and began to dream about going to London to study law. Although he was still very shy, he was not afraid of new experiences. His oldest son, Harilal, was born in 1888, and Kastur wanted Mohandas to stay with them. His mother did not want him to leave India either, until Mohandas promised her that he would not touch meat, wine, or women. Although many friends of the family disagreed with Mohandas's plan, Laxmidas managed to find enough money for it. Mohandas bought his ticket and Western clothes, and in September 1888 he said goodbye to his family and boarded the Clyde. The voyage was 3 weeks long, through the Suez Canal and across the Mediterranean Sea. On the ship, Mohandas refused to eat meat. Other passengers warned him that he would need to eat meat in London because of the cold weather, but Mohandas remembered his promise to his mother. In London, Mohandas met other Indian students. By 1888, more than 100 Indians had studied law in London, but Mohandas was the first from Porbandar. He felt very shy and he did not like the food. Soon, he discovered a vegetarian restaurant called The Central, where he enjoyed the food. He began to read vegetarian books and became interested in different foods. He decided that he would never eat meat again, and he never did. At first, Mohandas had dancing and music lessons, but they were too expensive. He began to cook for himself and to walk everywhere in order to save money. He went to vegetarian meetings and became friends with some British Christians. He also met Annie Besant, a famous writer who worked to help poor people in London, and who was interested in the Hindu faith. For the first time, he became interested in God, and he began to search for the truth about God. He wanted to learn about different ideas about God, and he began to read in English the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, which is one of the holy books of the Hindu faith. He had never read this book in his first language, Gujarati. He began to read the holy books of the Jews and Christians, and he also went to meetings with Indians of the Muslim faith. Mohandas finished his studies after 3 years in London and returned to India in 1891. Laxmidas met the ship in Bombay, now called Mumbai, and told Mohandas that their mother had died earlier that year. Mohandas was filled with sadness. He was unable to tell her that he had kept his promise while he had been in London. Mohandas was happy to be with his family. He played with Harilal and the children of Laxmidas and went for walks with them. Laxmidas hoped that Mohandas was going to earn lots of money as a lawyer, but it was not easy. First, Mohandas went to Bombay, which was the biggest city in Western India, 940 kilometers south of Porbandar. He began to learn about Indian law, but there were many good lawyers in Bombay, and no one wanted to use him. He was still very shy, and he hated going to court. Mohandas went back to Rajkot and opened his own law office there. He began to find some easy work, but in 1893, his life changed again. His brother Laxmidas got into trouble with a British officer called Ollivant. Because Mohandas had met Ollivant in London, Laxmidas asked Mohandas to go and talk to him. At first, Mohandas refused, but at last his brother persuaded him. Ollivant remembered Mohandas, but he did not like Laxmidas. He became angry when Mohandas tried to talk to him. He called his servant, who pushed Mohandas out of the room. This was a painful experience, and Mohandas felt angry and bitter with himself, as well as with the British officer. For the first time, he realized how strong the British government was. An older Indian lawyer told Mohandas to forget the experience, but most of Mohandas's work was in Ollivant's court, and he felt miserable and helpless. Just then, Laxmidas received a letter from a company in Porbandar. The company had an office in the city of Durban, in South Africa. Abdullah Sheth, the head of the Durban office, could not speak English, and he needed someone to help him to work with the company lawyers. Gandhi was happy to go to South Africa for a year. Although he would not have his own office, he would visit a new country, meet new people, and have different experiences. He would also be able to repay to Laxmidas the money he had given him for his studies in London. Mohandas had been back in India for 2 years, and once again he prepared to leave. He said goodbye again to Kastur and their 2 sons. Manilal had been born in 1892 and traveled to Bombay. In April 1893, he boarded the safari and began the long voyage to South Africa. Nouns: 1. Railway station, a place where trains stop. 2. Pocket, a small bag and clothing for carrying items. 3. Ticket, a card allowing entry or travel. 4. Journey, traveling from one place to another. 5. Passenger, a traveler in a vehicle. 6. Compartment, a separate section of something. 7. Injustice, lack of fairness. 8. Empire, a group of states under one authority. 9. Provinces, areas outside the capital city. 10. Customs, traditional practices of a group. 11. Coast, land next to the sea. 12. Beach, a sandy shore by water. 13. Faith, trust or confidence in something. 14. Untouchables, lowest caste in India. 15. Wine, alcoholic drink from grapes. 16. Custom, traditional way of doing something. 17. Arrangement, the action or result of arranging. 18. Experiences, contact with events or facts. 19. Voyage, a long journey by sea or space. 20. Sadness, the state of being sad. 21. Lawyers, people who practice law. 22. Court, a place where legal cases are judged. 23. Trouble, problems causing worry. 24. Servant, a person employed to do domestic work. Verbs: 1. Take, to get hold of something. 2. Wonder, to be curious about something. 3. Recognize, to identify from knowledge. 4. Lay, to put down gently. 5. Govern, to control or rule. 6. Belong, to be owned by someone. 7. Pray, to speak to a deity. 8. Argue, to give reasons for something. 9. Smoke, to inhale tobacco or drugs. 10. Accept, to agree to receive something. 11. Manage, to be in charge of something. 12. Board, to get on a vehicle. 13. Refuse, to decline to do something. 14. Discover, to find unexpectedly. 15. Persuade, to convince someone to do something. 16. Receive, to be given something. 17. Repay, to pay back money. Adjectives: 1. Well-dressed, wearing stylish clothes. 2. Famous, known by many people. 3. Successful, achieving desired results. 4. Extraordinary, very unusual or remarkable. 5. Rough, not smooth. 6. Narrow, of small width. 7. Shy, nervous around people. 8. Dirty, not clean. 9. Rich, having much money. 10. Confident, sure of oneself. 11. Jealous, envious of others. 12. Ashamed, feeling guilty or embarrassed. 13. Painful, causing pain. 14. Miserable, very unhappy. 15. Expensive, costing a lot of money. 16. Poor, lacking money. 17. Holy, sacred or religious. Adverbs: 1. Bitterly, in a resentful way. 2. Quite, fairly or significantly. 3. Secretly, in a hidden manner. 4. Separately, apart from others. Phrasal verbs: 1. Ride in, to travel in a vehicle. 2. Go on, to continue. 3. Go back, to return. 4. Look after, to care for. 5. Get into, to become involved in. 6. Push out, to force to leave.